Do you wonder if it's time to raise your prices? As a business owner, you probably want to do that, but we're going to share with you today 5 clues to know when it's time to do that. I'm Jennifer Quinn. I'm hosting the show today for Spark Accounting Solutions, and I'm joined by Julie Babcock Hyde, CPA, CFM, QuickBooks Pro Advisor, so many things. And she's also the founder and owner of Spark Accounting Solutions. Hi, Julie.
Hello, I am super excited to be talking about pricing. This is like a make or break it issue for many small businesses, and it's scary and nobody knows exactly how to do it right. So I am excited to talk about how to know that it's time to raise prices.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is an important topic. I know that when small business owners are starting out, how to do their initial pricing is a challenge, but now we're taking it to the next level. You've been in business for a while and you need to figure out if it's time to raise your prices. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So you have it down to 5 clues.
I do have it down to 5 clues. There's probably a million more, but these are some of the most common ones that I see with people. And
Okay, cool.
so
Let's dive right in.
let's do it. So, my first clue for everybody is if you are working your butt off and you're still not making any money, and not only that, you've got a waiting list of more people that want to work with you, you are not charging enough. And I see this happen a lot when people first start their business, and especially in this gig kind of economy that we've got right now. People decide, oh, I'll just do a little bit on the side because I want to supplement my income. And so to when they do that, they often look at their whatever their employer is paying them as kind of a okay, so I need to charge like if they get paid $20 an hour, they're like, okay, well, if I charge $30 an hour, then I'll make some extra and it'll all be good. And so eventually, so they're doing this on the side, the business grows and eventually it becomes a full-time business for them. But the difference between having that just as like a little side gig versus having a real business is now all of a sudden you're a business owner. And business owners, especially in a small startup phase, are not just generating revenue like you probably are for your employer. You've got 8 million hats to wear. And so if you think that you're going to be able to replace your income from your salary job by charging the same amount that you were getting paid by your employer, you're going to see problems. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
and so you're working for $30 an hour, but now you used to be spending about 40 hours a week generating revenue. Now, as a small business owner, you're doing marketing, you're doing IT, you're the janitor, you're doing everything, right? And
Right.
and you're not able to generate revenue 100% of the time. So in order to replace what you were making before, you now are working 60 hours a week to make it the same as you were making before or less. And so that's a problem. And so it's a common problem, I think, when people start out. So not only do you need to think about, I'm working all the time, but you also need to look at, hey, I've got a waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you do have a waiting list, that's another really good indicator that you could probably increase your rates. If people are already waiting for Um, people are already waiting for a week to get in to see you, or 2 weeks, or three
Right.
weeks.
Right.
Um, they're probably also going to be willing to pay more to get in sooner. So that's my very first clue. If you're working your butt off, you're not making as much money as you want to be, and you've got a waiting list on top of that, um, it's definitely time to raise your prices.
And then when you raise your prices, what happens to your workload?
Well, you know what? In a perfect world, you would double your prices, lose half your customers, and make the same amount of money, right?
Okay.
In a perfect world. Um, what actually happens is always interesting. Um, Sometimes you will still end up work, but you're making more money, and so it doesn't feel as bad. Or you can afford to hire some help and
Oh,
and
there you
service those extra people. Or you may be able to raise your prices, reduce your client list a little bit. You have more clients that value you more. And so you may just increase your satisfaction with your customer base as well.
Perfect. I love it. Okay, that's incentive right there. All right, so number 2, Julie.
Yes, number 2, if you have got a low profit margin and you think that you're going to make up all your money on just volume sales, you may need to raise your prices. So let's talk about what some of those things mean. So the idea of profit margin is basically your selling price minus whatever it costs you to deliver that service or that product. So if you want to make $100,000 a year and you're selling something for $3 and it costs you $2, and so your profit margin is $1, $1, you're gonna have to sell 100,000 of that item to make $100,000. That all makes sense, right? But if your profit margin is $10, your workload has gone down to only 10,000 items. And so you want to really think about that and think about, is that volume that you need to reach to meet your target income really doable? There are products, there are industries that are really low volume. And some of those are like grocery stores, the big box retailers. And what's happening to a lot of the mom and pop shops that are trying to compete with those really, high volume, low margin stores? They're not able to survive, right? And so you really need to look at that. And so to get ready for our show today, I had to find an example.
Okay, good.
So here's what I did. I went out to Goop. You're familiar with Goop, right? Gwyneth Paltrow's little curated list of cool stuff that you can buy.
I actually was not familiar with it.
Okay, so she's got, it's all really high-end stuff for the most part. And so I looked at their first page of women's sunglasses. Okay. They all range from $225 to $300 for the stuff that I saw like on the first row. Now, then I went to Walmart, and their sunglasses for women's sunglasses range from $10 to $25. Okay. So if we were to think about the costs that go into making sunglasses, I'm going to guess that the ones that you can buy at Goop probably do cost a little bit more. They're probably a little bit higher quality, but they're selling for 10 times the price of the ones at Walmart. Mm-hmm. Do we really think that the cost to manufacture them is 10 times more?
I would guess not, but that would be interesting to have the numbers.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, but my guess is that the margin on those high-end sunglasses is a ton better than the cheap ones. And so how do you get those premium prices as opposed to charging the lowest prices? That's something that you have to figure out. How do you communicate that value? How do your customers see that additional value so that you aren't stuck selling $100,000 profit margin items to try to get to your target income goal? What can you do to boost up your profit margin? And if you have a really low one, again, it may be time. It's maybe your clue that it's time to increase prices. Communicate your value a little bit better so that you don't have to work as hard to reach your income goals.
Okay. All right. That makes perfect sense. How does that translate into, with the low profit margin though? How does that translate into service-based businesses?
You've got kind of the same thing, because you still, with the service-based business, you're basically providing your time. And so there's, especially if you have team members, there's still a cost associated with that time. Or if you're trying to pay yourself a certain amount, there's still a cost associated with that time. Right. And so you're looking at, again, the difference between a commodity level service versus a, high-end level service. So, if you're out there looking for a tax return to be prepared, I'll use that because that's something that I can throw some numbers around. You're going to see firms out there that'll say, I'll do your business return. Our business returns start at $600. You're going to see other firms out there that say our business returns start at $3,000. And so that's a really good example. The people that are charging $600 or $300 or less for a business return have a low profit margin compared to the people that are charging $3,000.
Well, and that's even more compelling in a service-based business because probably the amount of time that you put into it is the same. And if you have to make up for it in volume, then you're either hiring a bigger team,
yep.
right? Or
yes.
you're running yourself ragged.
Exactly. And so yeah, you definitely want to look at that and see how do I push that price up so that I'm not trying to make it all up in volume.
Okay, perfect. Love it. Okay, let's move on to point number 3. And this one I really like. I have a sales background, and so I really like this one because it is not good. Right. Your main selling point is that you are cheaper than your largest competitor. Or is it largest competitor?
It could be largest competitor or any of your competitors.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I think back to a business card I got once from an HVAC company, and their business cards on them said, "Hey, we cost less because our overhead is less." And I'm just like, okay. So several things come to mind when dealing with this as a selling point. Number one that I really want people to think about is what kind of customers are you attracting?
Exactly.
When your biggest selling point is that you're the cheapest.
Yeah.
You are attracting incredibly price sensitive customers. And these are the people that, if they go on Groupon and find somebody to do their nails for 50% off this time, they're probably not going to come back next time. They're going to go back to Groupon and they're going to find somebody else that's willing to do it for 50% off.
Exactly.
So your number one, getting people that value cheap. And number two, you're attracting customers that maybe aren't very loyal, that are going to be incredibly price sensitive and move to somebody else. But I want to challenge people to think about one other thing with that. If you're advertising that you are the cheapest, if you're planning on having your car serviced and you get 3 quotes on it, and somebody comes in at $500 and somebody comes in at $5,000 and somebody else comes in at like $1,000 or $1,500, what do you end up thinking generally about those 3 different bids? I tend to think, hey, this one that came in really cheap, they might not know what they're doing.
Right.
The one that came in really high, I may think those people are really trying to scam me because they don't think I know what I'm talking about with my car. And the one in the middle, I'm like, okay, these guys must be the reasonable ones, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and so you want to make sure that you're not setting the expectation by being the cheapest that you're also the worst. And I think sometimes advertising that you're the cheapest also sends a message that you're potentially the worst option out there. So that's something else to be careful with. And so if that is something that you're advertising and that you're promoting to entice people to come to your business, think about who you're attracting. Are you attracting price sensitive people? Are you finding loyal customers that are continuing to come back to you over and over again because you are the cheapest? Or are you getting the kind of quality customers that you want? If you're getting the quality customers that you want, maybe that's fine for now. But the other thing that happens with this, let's go back to that HVAC company that I used as an example.
Okay.
They said, we cost less because we don't have as much overhead. Well, that might be true right now. But what happens when they grow and they need to hire a team member?
Oh, there you go.
Or they need to hire 2 team members, or they need to have a fleet of vans. Are they going to have low overhead then? Eventually, their business is either going to grow to the same size as their competitors, and they're going to have the same level of overhead. And what they've done is they've set this whole expectation that they're going to charge, 20% less than everybody else. But now all of a sudden, in order to pay all their bills, they have to raise their rates. And now their customers feel like, hey, you promised us low rates and now you can't deliver. You're the same as everybody else. So that's another thing you have to be really careful with when you're advertising we're the cheapest or we have low rates because of this, is because that those factors that keep your rates down now may not always hold true.
May not. That's such a great point. Such a great point. Yeah. Okay, good. So the thing that came to mind when I saw point number 3 was exactly what you just said. It's like if you attract a customer based on price, you're going to lose them based on price.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think all of us would rather do business with people who really value the services and products that we have to provide.
Yeah.
And when we're dealing with price sensitive customers, those people are not necessarily going to be looking for the best burger or the best accountant or the best business coach, or, they're not necessarily looking for the best, they're looking for the cheapest.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly having to compete on price, you're constantly having to compete on price. And there's almost always going to be somebody that's willing to do it for cheaper than you.
Yeah, I love that. So good.
So,
all right, number 4. And this one seems to be pretty cut and dry. I like it.
Number 4, if it's been more than a year since the last time you raised your prices, it's probably time to raise your prices. So I think all of us can look at things in our lives that cost more this year than they did last year, right? Whether it's the cost of your salaries for your team, whether it's the cost of commercial rent for your space, whether it's just the cost of housing in your personal life, the cost of groceries in your personal life, the cost of fuel. Overall expenses go up. We all know that inflation exists. It's a real thing. And so if your prices are not adjusting for that, you are giving yourself a pay cut every single year. Everybody else is getting their piece of the pie, right? Because you still have to pay all your other bills. So if you haven't raised your prices in over a year, it's probably time. And I know clients that literally have not raised their prices for years.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And it's a problem. It becomes a problem because ultimately, everybody else is taking a little chunk of your revenue, a little bit more every year. And if you're not keeping up with that, you are absolutely giving yourself a pay cut.
So what is it that keeps business owners from raising their prices?
The number one thing that keeps people from raising their prices is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And because it is scary. It's scary to think, oh, what if my customers don't accept this price increase? What if there's a lot of pushback? What if I lose my entire customer base to one of my competitors?
Mm-hmm.
And so people would rather keep the revenue that they know now than do the price increases.
Well, and I suspect there's a right time to do it and a right way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. And obviously, if something bad has just happened with your client base, or you just, if you're a restaurant and you just had some kind of foodborne illness problem at your restaurant, it's probably not a good time to raise rates.
Good example. I like how you just pulled that one out of thin air.
I had to think of something. But so if there's been some kind of total customer crisis, it's probably not a good time to raise your rates. But I think generally speaking, for like service-based businesses, it is totally appropriate to say, on an annual basis, we're going to increase rates and set that expectation from the beginning.
For sure.
For a product-based business, when you see your prices increasing from your suppliers, that's a great time to raise your rates. I don't remember. I mean, when you go to the grocery store, those prices change all the time, right? And most of the time, I don't remember what I paid the last time. And so if they're charging me 10 cents more for a can of diced tomatoes, I probably don't even notice.
Ooh, but who changes prices all the time is Amazon. And the way that I know this is sometimes I'll just, as I think of something, I go add it to my cart, add it to my cart, add it to my cart. And then I don't think about it. And then I'm like, okay, 4 days later, I go open my Amazon and there's this list of these items in your cart, the price changed. Sometimes they went up and sometimes they went down, but Amazon always tells you so that you don't just hit, purchase or buy now. But prices are changing all the time. That's just the way the economy works. So
Right.
yeah, I totally agree with you. It's the fear of what is going to happen if, yeah. Okay, so and number 5, this is also a pretty cut and dry telltale sign.
Yeah, and I love this one because this one is like, if you're hearing this, it's a duh moment. If your customers are telling you you're not charging enough, it's time to raise your prices.
Yeah.
So this can come, you can hear this in many different ways from your customers. Sometimes they'll tell you, I can't believe how affordable you are. Sometimes they'll tell you, you can provide so much value for what you charge. Sometimes they'll literally tell you, you're the cheapest in town. I can't believe you charge so little. You'll hear all of these things, or you might see sometimes in service-based businesses, you'll get like unusually large tips, which is another way for your customers to say, you're really cheap. I'm going to give you a big tip.
Okay.
So look for
that makes sense. I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you see those signs happening, it's a really good message to say, I'm obviously not charging enough because my clients are telling me I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fear piece comes back into that, right? And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit more, about how to address that. Because especially for service-based businesses, this works best. If you're feeling a lot of fear over raising rates, there's several things that can be happening. Sometimes it's a self-limiting belief and not believing that you're really worth that next higher rate. And I found that one of the best ways to get over that self-limiting belief that you're not really worth it is to go ahead and sell your services at a higher rate and see what happens. And you may find, like, if you're charging $100 right now and you think you should really be charging $500, sometimes it's too much to step up to $500 because you don't believe it inside yet. And so what I challenge people to do is the next time you sell, instead of trying to sell at $500, sell it $200. Give yourself a little stretch. Sell it $150. And as soon as you start getting customers signing on at $150, the belief is, yes, I'm worth that. Okay. And push yourself forward. And it's less scary with a service-based business. Again, it's less scary because you can just bring your new customers on at that rate until you feel good and you feel like the market's going to accept this.
Good.
And I'm going to be honest with you. If you have 10 clients that are still paying you $100 and you suddenly add 10 clients that are paying you $250, which of those clients are you going to want to serve? All of a sudden, you're going to say, hey, you people that were paying me $100, you need to come up to my rates. This is what I'm worth.
Right.
And so moving forward with those price increases, focus on, doing it with your new clients, believe in the rates, feel good about the rates, and then you can roll them out to your existing clients.
So good. And now, what's an interesting question, and I don't know if this is, just where I live specifically, or if it's kind of happens all over, but I noticed that pricing is different when I'm working with local clients versus national clients.
Right.
And so how do you recommend that people work with that?
Well, I think you definitely need to understand your market. And you're right. Like if you are in, if you're in a small town America and you're competing against other small town America people, you need to know what your competitors are doing.
Sure.
Obviously, that's not totally going to set your price because what you have to offer is going to be different in value. And so, but it's a factor as you look at things. But when you look at things nationally, like I was just looking at some salary surveys for my own industry, and like the area I'm in was 11% less than the national average, and in LA area it was 30% higher than the national average. And so if you know that about the market that you're selling in, it's helpful to be like, okay, people in LA expect to pay probably 30% more on everything for the products and services that they're buying than people in Idaho, where I'm at, that are apparently paying 11% less.
Right.
And so kind of knowing knowing what the marketplace is like for the customer that you're talking to. If you are selling nationally, the probability is that you're probably going to be able to get a little bit higher rates.
Okay, perfect. Julie, your tips are always so great, and I know that you've just created a way for people to get more tips from you. They just go to your Facebook page here, Spark Accounting Solutions, and click join my list, and they'll be subscribed to your newsletter.
Yep, we send out a newsletter every other week, so we're not going to bombard your inbox, but we've got some great small business tips, and they're not like accounting nerd tips. I'm not going to tell you how to do something exciting in QuickBooks. I'm going to tell you how to do something that's going to hopefully improve your business, make you more profitable, make you more efficient. Because you know what? I probably get more excited about accounting tips than other people do, because that's what I do. But we really want to help boost your profitability.
Perfect. And who doesn't want to boost their profitability?
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for once again sharing your tips. Thank you to the live and replay viewers. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and Julie will make sure and come back around, or just send a private message, and we can go that way too. So with that, until next time, we are out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Bye.